What's up, you guys? I haven't been here in like a minute, so I am excited to be back. Well, want to get started? Let's get started. I think for some of you guys that don't know me, oh shoot, what the heck happened here? Okay, for some of the guys that don't know me, really quick, my name is Paul David. I started a company called Identified Talent Solutions, four-time fastest growing company, Inc. 500 company, best places to work. We are in the staffing and recruitment space, also the IT, healthcare IT technology recruitment space. And if you guys follow me on Instagram and Facebook, you know I started a recruiting mentorship program. So I've been a little bit busy, and that's kind of why I haven't been around, but you know, be with you guys, and I'm excited to answer all these questions that you guys have asked me. So, with that said, let's get going. Let's get going. All right, first question's from Heather. Heather asks, I forgot if I need to read the background here, but Heather is, let's see, the business description and background question. So Heather asks, or Heather states that I am in the process of redoing my onboarding and want to add training videos for all aspects of the shop. I don't know if a private YouTube channel or would be better, or something more detailed such as Trainual would be suited for the company wanting to get to the franchise level. Okay, cool. So it looks like you're asking a question about a training video for franchise level. So you know, initially I was starting to read this, I thought it was from an employee level. But if you're trying to do it for a franchise level, yeah, I would use something like Trainual or like Kajabi, one of those online platforms, because I like the modules and how they function, right? So like, let's kind of review why you would use just a YouTube video. I would use a YouTube video if I'm training my internal employees on a system or what have you. It's a little bit easier. It's more cost effective. It doesn't need to be incredibly elaborate. It doesn't have to have like modules or any kind of functionality where you go from like one session to another session to another session, then you don't really need to test. But I think, you know, when it comes to a franchise and you're really trying to scale or duplicate what you have on your internal operations, and you're trying to scale that out from a franchise level, I think it would be, not probably, but it would be better if you use like an online education platform such as Trainual or something like Kajabi. I think it's just much more succinct. It flows better. It's more user friendly, and then you can track their progress rather than just looking at a YouTube video, because you can't really track that. So yes, if you're doing it from a franchise level, yes. If you're doing it from an internal employee level, probably YouTube video is going to be good enough. All right. Hopefully that answers your question. Gabor, he asked the next question. Let me read the business description and the background of the question. Throughout the past 2 years, I've been focused on growing our top line revenue, and this year we're on track to hit 1 million in sales. That is fantastic. We've been profitable all the way, but I feel that there's probably a lot of waste we can eliminate. Normally, I'm a sales guy and not a savings guy, so I'm not sure how to get started. As well as how to make consistent awareness of our bottom line an integral part of how we do business. We currently have a full-time accountant who can get me any reports I need. All right. So the question is, what are some quick wins I can implement to increase our bottom line profitability, and how should I go about doing this in the long term? Okay, that's a good question. I think you kind of answered it on your own. I think in business you have an offensive and a defensive strategy. I think your offensive strategy is always when it comes to going out and producing and creating more revenue, like, you know, increasing your predominance or increasing your penetration in the market of the service or product that you're selling. However, defensive is really, really important too. And I think what a lot of entrepreneurs, especially new entrepreneurs, tend to forget is that, you know, trying to keep costs low is a really important thing. I've always equated it to this. Like, if some of you, I have an 11-year-old daughter. You know, I think when I use this analogy, it's like when, you know, you're raising a child, you have to feed the child, right? That's the way it's going to grow. Same thing with the business. You have to feed the business, and the only way that the business will grow is if you feed it money. Now, the two ways to do that is increase revenue and decrease expenses. So that's, you know, when you're talking about quick wins, the quickest win that you can have is to look at your expenses and look at what you're utilizing and some of the cost factors that you have in your business. Just kind of nitpick it. You said it yourself with the accountant. Go through your accountant, go through the profit and loss, and go line item by line item by line item, right? Because your accountant will take your books, you know, your bookkeeper or your accountant, whichever one you're using, they'll give you a P&L. They should be giving you a P&L monthly that you should be reviewing. So, my advice to you is they're always going to give you a P&L, and they're always going to give you a balance sheet if you're using a bookkeeper or if you're using an accountant. If you're not, you should be doing that on your own using like a QuickBooks Online and making sure that you have your books, because that's really is like, it's like your navigation positioning, right? You need to know where you're at on a constant monthly basis. So what I would do is look at your P&Ls and find out, okay, what am I spending for cell phones? What am I spending for rent? What am I spending for mail? What am I spending for, I don't know, systems, right? Look at those line items and see, and what you'll do is you'll see like where there's waste happening, right? Or where maybe like you're having these recurring subscriptions that you don't really need, or what systems that you don't need, or, anything like that. You'll start to see. You'll start to kind of diagnose like the finances of your company and see what is being wasted, what is not being effective, and then you want to omit those and get that out. That way you can reduce the cost, and just by reducing the cost, you're going to increase your profitability. So what I would do again is get with your accountant, because you said you can get the reports. Get your P&L. Go through those line items and what you're spending, and try to eliminate things that you don't have. And I would make that a monthly process. Look at your P&Ls, look at your balance statement every single month. That is basically the health of your company, right? It's like when you go to a doctor, they diagnose you. That's what they do. You diagnose your company and how your company's doing and the health of your company based on your P&L and your balance sheet. Cool? All right. Let's get to the next one. Robin asks, okay, business description and background of the question. I want to be as productive as I can, and I know there is software and good old-fashioned day planners. What are you using today to stay effective and manage your time? Thank you so much. The question asked is time management. What time management system or process do you use and why? Okay, for me, I'm really not very complicated, and I don't really like to get in the minutia or get really complicated with my systems. I'm not the biggest systems guy in the world. I know they're essential, but I tend to keep it simple, right? That whole KISS method, keep it simple, stupid. So, that's what I try to do. What I found effective, and I can give you different recommendations, but what I found effective is just utilizing my Outlook calendar to the best of my ability, right? So I will schedule everything, like, I'll schedule when I work out, or when I need to make a phone call, or when I'm going to take lunch, or when I'm going to do business development, or when I'm going to follow up with, something, right? So every single slot is organized in my Outlook, because what that does is it's not only on my computer, it's not only on my laptop, or it's not only in my desktop, it's also on my phone, and sometimes it alerts on my Apple Watch. So that's what I use. I like using that more so than anything else. I know some of my students or some of my employees, they use like Monday, which is like a project management task tool. And you can utilize those things, but again, I can't speak in authority because like I just never really fully used it. I really like Outlook just because of the simplicity, right? Because like for me at least, when I'm organizing my day, I just really want something simple, easy to read, easy to maneuver. It doesn't have to have like any bells and whistles. I just want something really simple. And the most simple thing that has worked for me effectively is just managing my time on my Outlook calendar. So that's my recommendation to you. If you need something more, I don't know. I might not be the best answer, but that's, I might not be the best resource, but that's what I particularly use to make sure that I'm effectively utilizing my day and really scheduling my task on a daily basis. Okay, let's see. Sarah has the next question. Oops, we got lost over it. Business description and background of the question. I own a female-run and operated barbershop, male clients. And over the years, I have had countless barbers screw me over in all kinds of areas. Well, that sucks. The way they talk to me, the way they won't follow my process, they quit on me, and I can't seem to find a solution. This industry is very, very unique, and I'm looking for any and all ideas to make sure that I'm able to, that I'm being the right leader to keep people and grow. How do I know if I'm the problem and I'm not doing my job, or is it just the people you bring in, basically, is what she's asking. How do I build loyalty with my team? Okay, so the last question that you asked right there in that big statement is how do I know if I'm the problem or I'm not doing my job right, or is it just the people that you pick? I think that's what it's. I think there might be a grammatical error there, but um, here's the thing that both, right? Because like, when it comes to hiring, right? When it comes to hiring, it's your decision how you screen the candidate or how you screen the potential employee, what questions you ask, how to probe that person, how to look back on their references, how to check their references, look at their background checks and all those things, right? Because like you can really diagnose a person based on like, their background, how long they've been at a job, how effective they've been at a job, what kind of background check do they have, and all these different kinds of things. I mean, obviously you don't want to like just base everything on that one kind of one-dimensional thing, but it gives you a little bit of insight. It's like a teaser for like a movie. And when you get into and when you look at like a resume, their background, that's just one thing. But when you get into the actual interview process, I think that's important too, to really dig in on, and I don't want to go too long on the interview process. I mean, like that's a whole different technique and a much longer conversation. But it's important to interview the person or the candidate or the applicant that you're bringing on extensively, right? And I can't say that enough, because this is your first guard and first barrier to making sure that you hire the right person. You need to dig into their experiences. You need to ask them situational questions like tell me about when you had a conflict with your manager. Tell me when you had a conflict with your coworker. Tell me when you had a conflict with your customer. Tell me what you did. Tell me what the conflict was and what was the resolution for that. Let them talk about how they managed the conflict, how they managed their relationship with coworkers, with managers, with customers. Let them talk, because there you're going to get a lot of insight when they start to talk about those kinds of things. And keep at that question. A lot of times when we ask questions, we ask this very, very top level kind of like airy question. The better you do at getting into those questions, like, okay, so you had a conflict with, let's say, another barber. What happened with that barber? Okay, so you guys disagreed and you guys didn't talk for 3 weeks. Okay, so how did that affect the relationships or your customer service during that period of time? Okay, so it was tumultuous and it was contentious. Fantastic. Did you feel good? And what did you do to resolve those questions? So you see how I'm probing and I'm probing and I'm probing, because after a while they have to spill their guts, right? And they have to give you the truth. If you're good at doing that, then a lot of times you can really kind of screen out and filter the wrong employees that are coming into your organization. So, okay, so then the interview process is important. Once they get on there, then you got to set the rules, right? You got to, as the business owner, it's so important that you set the culture, the pace, and the cadence of the company, right? So if you get in there and you kind of don't know what your culture is, what your rules are, what your expectations are, and you're kind of just doing this haphazard thing where you really don't have concrete pillars or guidelines of how you want to run your business and how you expect your employees to perform in your business, then that's a problem, right? Because it's like throwing a bunch of chickens in the middle of a field and they're going to run all over the place. You got to pen them up and you got to say, this is your expectations. This is what I expect from you. This is how we track those things. I think a lot of us, when we start a business, and it's especially when we start to hire people, is like, we know it in our heads, right? We know, after you build your business for so long, we know how to act in our business. It's our business. This is how you do it. And then we kind of expect that everybody else in the business should be acting like that. But that's not the case. You have to give them guidelines on what you expect. And you have to give them consequences. If you don't give them consequences, if they don't do something correctly or they don't do something the way you want it to be run, then there has to be consequences. You write them up. You put them on a performance improvement plan. You have to give them some kind of consequence that will lead eventually to termination of their employment if they don't correct it, right? So that stuff is super important. So again, the interview process is important. Making sure that you have an established culture and operational, your operational excellence, or what you expect from your employees, and it has to be tangible and you need to write it out. So those two are really important. And the third thing I would say to that is make sure that you carry it out consistently. Because if you if you're not consistent with the execution of what you expect or how you discipline or how you terminate or even how you reward, then there's kind of this like kind of wobbly feeling in your company, and the ship is kind of like wobbling and it's not really tight. So again, the interview process is important, making sure that they understand the culture and the expectations of their job and what they're supposed to be doing, and then also make sure that you're consistent with the execution of the culture and the rules and those expectations that you have, and also the disciplining if that's the point. And I don't want to just say discipline, but also the reward if they do a good job. Okay. Okay. Let's see. Moving right along. Kimberly asked the next question. Her business description and background questions. I just finished working on a funnel for a makeup masterclass, which I'm about to launch March 21st. All right, so that was before. The overall campaign will end April 30th or May 3rd, possible extension. The current prices I have in play are a wait list for prospects to join the email list by downloading free product list, which will give them access to free live virtual makeup on April 4th. This will ultimately lead to the sale or a pre-recorded masterclass that's hosted in a private Facebook group. I also have sales page, videos, photos for promotions, which I'm running on Facebook and Instagram ads. Okay, and then the question is 7 days too short to open a wait list to drive potential customers to my funnel? Maybe, I think, I would say maybe. I don't know. I guess how large is your audience that you're selling to? I mean, if it's, if it's, well, maybe, well, let's start with that. Maybe. It depends on what your target is and how many sales that you want. Like, if you have a sales objective or a sales goal of selling 2 of your master classes in the next 7 days, that's probably maybe that's not too short, right? But if you have a sales objective or a sales goal of selling 1,000, and maybe you have 300 people on your social media page, that's probably going to be too short. So like what you want to do is when you have these kinds of concerns, you want to look at the variables too, right? Again, like what I just said, if you want to sell 2 master classes in the next 7 days, that's plausible, that's viable. You can do that. Again, if you want to sell 1,000 and you have 300 followers on your social media page, or you got 300 emails on your email like marketing list, that's going to be a stretch, right? So you got to look at those variables too. I would start with that. Look at the variables and see if it's too short, right? And I guess another question is, 7 days out, do you have to do it 7 days out? I mean, why are you doing it 7 days out? Do you want to, do it a little longer? Again, I think what I need more information on, like, what are some of your goals and what are some of the circumstances and the variables around what you're trying to accomplish here, right? Because it's kind of asking the same question as is 7 days too short for me to lose 55 pounds, or is it 7 days too short to have me lose like 3 pounds, or whatever it is, right? So it's kind of like that. We need to know like a little bit of the variables and what you're trying to do. But I think maybe by me asking you these questions, this might give you the ability to answer your own questions, right? So I'll leave it with that. I don't like to answer questions that I don't know all the details about. So I'll leave it with that, and hopefully that helped you restructure your question and maybe just answer it on your own. So thanks for the question, though. Lauren has the next question here: business description and background. I am opening an Etsy store, and my partner and I have verbally agreed on things and are working on a written agreement. Question is, what items should I make sure to include in a partnership agreement? Does AO have a template? I don't know if AO has a template. I would ask Sean if AO has a template. But if he doesn't, I'm sure there's something out in the Google world that you can Google and something pops up. From a partnership agreement, I'll give you it very generally. I think it's really important that the partnership agreement is really consistent on 2 different variables: the financial contribution that you're making and the they call it sweat equity, I guess, if you want to call it that way. But the amount of effort that you're putting into the company, right? Because like one is intangible, one is tangible. If someone's putting $100,000 into a business, but they're not putting any work into it at all, and one person is going to be running the business and is responsible for growing the business to a certain point, a certain revenue, over the next year, maybe 50-50 would be okay on that particular situation. Again, there's variables. What I would look for is like, okay, is there a financial contribution? What is the working contribution of the company? I would put in like stipulations of, okay, do you agree with these things? And what about if there's a dissolution of the business? Let's say you have, usually when you come up with the percentages, dissolution of the business, like meaning like, okay, if the business doesn't work out, you're going to liquidate assets or, separate. It usually goes by the percentages. You kind of want to figure out like, what you want to do if the business doesn't work out and you guys split ways and you have capital assets or assets that you have bought together through the business. And then also if one wants to not continue or one wants to buy out the other one, right? So those are like really, really high level things that I would look for in a partnership agreement. Again, as far as the wording in the template, look at it online, right? And, one thing that I would put is instead of going through put an arbitration clause on there, put a non-disclosure on there. So when you guys sign it, you can't disclose a lot of it. You can't disclose information if you guys get pissed off at each other. I'd go into arbitration so you don't rack up a whole bunch of attorney fees. You can just do it in mitigation. I know sometimes partnerships get contentious and you just start to argue, but at the end of the day, you want to reduce your costs. I mean, attorneys are great, but they cost a lot of money, and whatever you need to do to not get into a situation where you guys are battling that way, probably the better from the stress and a mental health standpoint, and also from a financial standpoint. Okay. Nancy has the next question. Business description and background of the questions. I have no debt. That's awesome. Recently completed 6-month emergency fund. Awesome. I have $2,000 to spare to invest in kicking off my jewelry business, for which I needed to do so much. I can probably bootstrap, but not sure if I can quickly need more, and therefore I would need to use my emergency fund. Okay, well, let me go back to the other question. Should I keep my 6-month emergency fund complete, or should I use some of it to invest and start my business? Okay, first of all, everyone's going to have different opinions and different ways to look at this. Okay, I am a pretty conservative entrepreneur, both from a personal finance standpoint and also a business finance standpoint. So, yes, I think emergency fund is very important, not only on a business and also from a personal side, right? One of the big failures of business is being undercapitalized. If something happens, such as the pandemic, right, or something happens like that, and you don't have capital to put you through, to get you through a certain kind of months, and your business is going to fold. So I do think emergency funds from a personal standpoint is very, very important. I would personally, I'm giving you my advice. I have like a 1.5 year window of like personal finances if everything falls. Just cash, not what I can liquidate, but like just to like live if something happens, right? Because what that does for me is it gives me kind of peace of mind, right? So if something happens, I know I'm not going to be homeless, or I'm not going to be buried in debt or anything like that. So yes, I would recommend that you keep that. Short of it, I'd recommend that you keep your emergency fund intact. For me, it's just a better peace of mind. It's a safety net for me, I can't really build. I can't really build a business, knowing that I might not have any food or a place to live, right? Like, so the necessities need to be intact for me. Okay. Okay. Let's see. Let's see how much we got. Got a bunch, folks. Jake has the next question. Business description and background question. Real estate flips, Airbnb rentals. I am full-time student, and I also manage my business as well as all my personal investments. It's very stressful, and sometimes I feel like I'm not doing enough. And the question is how to overcome feeling overwhelmed. Okay, so And again, for me, whenever I get overwhelmed, it's because I'm getting anxious about something. And when I'm getting anxious about something, I'm looking at it. I'm just taking in too much, right? I'm looking at too much of the situations. I'm looking at too much of the variables of uncertainty. I'm worrying about things that aren't happening. I'm worrying about all the things that are on my plate. I'm not focusing on the now, right? There's this, I forgot, I forgot the quote, but it's like, if we focus on the past, then we become depressed. If we focus on the future, then we have a lot of anxiety. If we focus on the present, then we have a lot of peace, right? So I think it's really important that if you have all these goals and all these things that you're doing, it's really important to really kind of compartmentalize a lot of the actions and a lot of the duties that you're doing. You got a lot of stuff going on with real estate flips, Airbnb rentals, you're a full-time student, you have personal investments that you're managing. That can definitely get overwhelming, and I'm pretty sure everybody in this group can get overwhelmed sometimes. And when we get overwhelmed, we get anxious, and then we get stressed, and that's not good. That doesn't make us perform really highly. This is when you get into that, let me talk about me. When I get into that situation, I look at the whole situation and I break it down, right? I break it down from segment to segment. What do I need to complete first? What do I need to do now? What is it that is taxing that I need to get? What is the most pressing thing that I need to do right now? Get that off my checklist and then move on. Because a lot of times when we get overwhelmed and we see this flood of duties or like tasks or like objectives that we need to do, we look at it and we get overwhelmed because it's so big. But what we can do is actually look at that and categorize it in priority, right? Like, what do you need to do first? What is the highest impact duty that you can make right now? Get that off the table, right? What is the most urgent duty task that you need to do now? And then get that off the table. Then go to the next one, then go to the next one, then go to the next one, then go to the next one. And then you got to keep on doing that so you don't feel overwhelmed. But just focus on that single task. It's so hard to like multitask. Just at least for me, right? It's like I can't multitask and dedicate all my effort and energy on the task that I'm performing if I'm thinking about something else. So I'd rather do the task that I'm doing right now to the best of my capacity and get it out of the way, right? And that's what you have to do. That's what you have to do. Psychologically, what we do is we start doing tasks that aren't really like impactful, right? It's like, oh my gosh, I have to call my client back or I'm going to lose them. Or I go to the grocery store, right? A lot of times we float to the task that we don't really want to do. We float to the task that is like the least impactful and the least, how do I say this? The least, confrontational, the easiest, the one to pass, like the one of least resistance. We want to go to that because subconsciously we don't want to handle those really arduous tasks. So again, you got to be conscious about prioritizing the task and making sure that you complete the tasks that have the most urgency and the highest impact. Then as you start to go down your task list, you'll see that you've gotten those off the table faster and faster and faster and faster. But focus at the task at hand rather than looking at the whole entire thing. And that's what I do. So I don't feel overwhelmed. Because we all do. We all do. I think all of us feel overwhelmed at times. We always feel like there's just not enough time, right? And the truth is, I got a time management question earlier. The thing is, like, I'll give you this quote. There is no such thing as time management. Everybody has 24 hours in a day. You can't manage time. You can manage yourself. That's all you can manage. So the more effective and the better ways that you handle your duties and tasks during the day, the better you're going to be able to be. The greater, the more effective you're going to be. Okay. All right. Zach, business description and background of question. My company, Diamond State Technology, specializes in working with access control, cameras, automations, and security systems, both for residential and commercial applications. The reasons why I'm asking this question is I'm growing rapidly. I need guidance how to build a 6-month training program for my technicians. Thank you, mentors, for your valuable and irreplaceable knowledge. How do you start training a program for employees? What are the bare bones structures needed for a successful program? Okay, cool. That's a cool question. I'm glad you're thinking in that way since you're growing, right? Because one of the most critical things that you need to do as you start to grow and as you start to scale your company is you need to be able to replicate your operations and your tasks to your subordinates or to the people that are going to be employed by your company. So that I'm glad you're thinking in that way. Um, if you're like a solopreneur or you have a few employees and you don't have a lot of employees and you've been good at like teaching them kind of on your own without any kind of like system in place, then you're growing rapidly, it's time to do that, right? A training manual is incredibly important. Heather asked a question earlier, what you can do as far as, training your employees. You can start a Facebook, not Facebook, what is that? You can start a YouTube channel and, not YouTube channel, but YouTube classes and tutorials for your employees, and then you can pair it up with an actual like manual on what they need to do from a training perspective. But before you even get into that, so I'm kind of giving you how you deliver that content. So let me back up because I just told you maybe how we can deliver it, but I'm going to back up. First thing you need to do is you need to draw an outline, right? What is your goal? So what are you trying to convey? What do you need to train them, right? And you have to understand that, again, what just like these employees that you're going to have or the people that are going to be working for you are brand new, right? So you've been doing this for a long time. It's in your brain. I mean, it's easy to comprehend for you. When you train someone, you got to break it down. It's almost like step by step by step by step by step. It's like, okay, take the peg, put it in the round hole. Take the square peg, put it in the square hole. You have to get that rudimentary and that elementary for them so they can understand that. So before I tell you what to do next, just understand that you got to really break it down so it becomes something that they can repeat, and it can become a step by step by step by step process. Okay. When you do that, you got to build out an outline. What's first, like, right? What's module 1? What's module 1A? What's module 2? So all those steps, you got to build those steps. It's like when you go to IKEA and you get a desk, right? They give you an instruction manual with a little Allen wrench, and what do you have to? You screw A into B and you screw C into D and you put the leg into F. So you got to break that down. And so you build out an outline and what you want to convey, and from point A to point whatever Z, you have to break out. You have to create an outline. So you create an outline and you do step by step instructions for them to be able to perform the job that you have at hand, right? So the outline is first. When you do that, when you finish the outline, then you look back and you want to ask yourself, okay, do I want to test these people on after each module, after each chapter, after each phase? How do I test them? How do I know if they understand the knowledge? So is there question and answer tests? Is there not question and answer? Is there multiple choice tests? How do you test these guys? And then at the end of that, the reason why I'm saying how do you test these guys, because if you have a 9-chapter or 9-phase outline training program, they're going to get lost there somewhere. So you have to be able to understand if they're retaining the questions at the different, or they're retaining the information at the different segments that you are delivering, right? So, I mean, if you guys have ever taken an insurance exam, a real estate exam, and you go to those online classes, like those online tutorials, they always test you at the end of the chapter. They test you at the end of the chapter because they're wanting to make sure that you're retaining the information, right? So that's what you want to do with your training program. And then at the end, after you build all of that, like the roadmap, the outline, the testing, and all these kinds of stuff, how do you want to deliver it, right? You can be like Heather and deliver through a Trainual or like a Kajabi, or you can do it. The easiest and the most effective and the cheapest way is to do it. Put it on a YouTube channel, do it in modules, build them out a training manual with tests at the end, and you can hand grade it, right? So that's what I would do to make sure that you can, as you scale, you have this training program. Cool. And you can do it virtual, you can do it online, or you could actually have a trainer or yourself do the training classes over a week or something like that. Okay, let's see. Moving right along. Morgan says, I work with companies to help them maintain their season tickets to concert venues, sports teams, etc. I'm very active on LinkedIn and in-person networking events prior to COVID, but looking for new options to add in. I am looking for ways to use networking groups, associations to develop more memberships or get even more buy-in with large customers. What are some strategies you'd use to build networks? Okay, cool. That's a good question. As a recruiting company, we do that every day, right? So We do that a lot. And COVID has definitely put a little bit of a wrench in this. What we have been, what we've always done was we'd, we would, well, one, LinkedIn, right? Because that's important. But LinkedIn is getting a little bit saturated. But LinkedIn, you want to connect to the right audience, the right people that you're targeting. Try to engage them, through an email or through a message. And that's one way. There's a whole bunch of different ways, but try to engage them. If you're asking questions or if you're trying to sell to them, try to engage them through messages. I would constantly to network. I would post on LinkedIn through your personal or through your LinkedIn profile, right? And then ask some questions. Like, you want to, what people love to do on LinkedIn is answer those questions. Like now LinkedIn gives you like a series of like, you can ask these different questions. They just love asking questions, and then not only do they love asking questions on LinkedIn, they also like commenting. And there's a really cool way of like, if you ask a series of questions on LinkedIn on your, when you do a post, and then they start engaging and then they ask you questions, you can have a conversation back and forth. That's one way of doing it. Facebook groups, there's Facebook groups everywhere on for every organization. I would join as many Facebook groups as you can. People are constantly posting on the wall there. You can meet new people. That's one way to do it. A new way that a lot of people are doing it is through the new platform Clubhouse. That's been a really interesting and neat way. I mean, I'm not super versed on that, but I've learned quite a bit from that platform, and sometimes I'll just leave it in the background, listen to it. You can start your own Clubhouse chat, and then try to invite as many people as you can doing that. So those are like three things, and those are three tips that I would recommend for like really broadening your network, especially in pandemic era, and we're not like gathering as much. Try those. Those are some of my recommendations that I have for you. Okay. Joe asked the next question. I own a home inspection business, and I am turning away 5 to 7 inspections a week. I'm looking for a partner with another inspection company, solopreneur, who is not as busy as I am, so I can make more money while working less. How do I do the billing? Collect from the client and then send the inspection company? Wait, I'm reading that wrong. No, you wrote that right. I'm reading that wrong. Collect from the client and send to the other inspection company. Have them collect and send me a check. No, well, okay. Let me just answer that one before I get any further here. No, if they're your client, you collect from the client, and then. So like if you're contracting, if you're utilizing another inspection company, they're your sub tier. You collect the payment first, and then you cut the check to them. It never goes the other way. If they're your sub tier, you get the check first. Okay. Okay. So now the question is, what would you suggest as far as paying independent contractors who I can contract to help me facilitate providing my services for customers? Okay, so the first problem that I see is that you're turning away 5 to 8 inspections per week. That's incredibly problematic, right? We spend so much time and so much effort to gain clientele and to gain business, right? That we don't want to turn these away. We need to try to figure out a way to bridge the gap so we can fulfill as much business as possible. Because that is, having that much business where you're over capacity is the best problem to have, right? Because you have to figure out how to deliver on that. Number two, you don't want to turn that away because that actually ruins your brand, right? If you're turning too many customers away because you can't fulfill it, after a while, that's going to get out into the community. And like, well, we're not going to contact Joe anymore because he can't do it, And so they obviously I forgot how that works. So like, is it the bank that sends you guys out for inspection, or is it the escrow company? I don't know. I forgot. But like, whoever company is sending you out for inspections, you don't want to turn that business away. So how do you? I want to start with that at least. How do you alleviate that? Well, my suggestion is if you have that much business and you're turning that much business away, you hire someone full-time on your staff to do the inspections. If you can, right? And I'll tell you why. Because if you hire a solopreneur or contract or another like contractor such as yourself, right? They will always put preference on their own work before yours. So their dependability level is always going to be a lot less than someone that you hire directly, right? So that's important. Just understand that you can do it that way, and I understand why you would do it that way, because you kind of want to mitigate the cost, or like you want to make sure that, you know, if your business, if business starts to drop, you're not carrying a full-time employee and you have to pay a salary or whatever, however you guys, however this things are sliced and diced here. But if you do that, again, they're always going to go to, they're always going to service their clients first, right? If you don't want to hire a full-time employee, then the only way that I would do this is work with other contractors, work with 1099 people, but you need to have a pretty extensive network of people who you can call on, right? Because if you're going to just utilize like one 1099 subcontractor, and you know you only have one relationship with them, and you're like, hey, I need you to do an inspection at 2:30 tomorrow, and they're like, well, I can't. Then you don't have anyone else to go to. So your job is to have 10 to 15 people that you can call on a rotation and say, hey, look, I have another inspection. Could you do this? And then you want to figure out what the splits are going to be, right? So how you pay them, how it's 1099 them. If you're using them as a subcontractor, just tell them. Here's what I do. I'd say, hey, look, if you're going to just exactly how you do your business, right? It's like and forgive me, I don't know how it works, but like in our business, basically, like we provide a service, we send out an invoice, the invoice gets paid in 30 days. You would do that same thing to your subcontractor. You're like, okay, if I send you out to a job, you're going to do that job. I'm going to give you half the fee of that job, 75% fee of that job, or however you want to slice and dice it. Then after they're done, tell them to send you an invoice for like net 30, net 15, or whatever it is, and then you pay them accordingly, right? Does that make sense? Let me kind of summarize that. If you're turning away that much business, and if it's a consistent turn away of 5 to 8 people a week, I would suggest that you bring on a full-time employee. Why? Because you have more control of that employee, and you will wind up making more money if you can really drive that business, drive that kind of overflow business all the time. If you don't want to do that, and if you want to contract with like sub-tiers or other contractors or other inspection professionals, then have a large network of them, so you can have someone available for you at all times. Your question is, how do you pay them? Have them invoice you after they do their job, net 15, net 30. Have them mirror the terms that you have with your client. So like, if you invoice your client in 30 days, you're going to get paid. Then you have enough cash to pay out your subcontractor. Cool. All right. Karina is the next question. Business description and background of questions. My husband runs his own videography business and does approximately $250,000 in 2020. He has no employees, only contractors, no CRM, and does almost all of his administrative tasks manually. My experience is in administration and operation management, so fixing things, setting up systems, and running the behind the scenes are all strengths of mine. That being said, working with a spouse seems like it could have additional challenges I'm not fully aware of. The question is, what factors would you take in consideration when deciding between working on your side hustle versus with your spouse in their business? Yeah, it does. It has complications. Working with friends have complications. Working with family has complications. It doesn't have to just be a spouse. It can be a brother, a sister. It could be, cousin. Like all those things have complications. And the reason why it has complications, and this is something that I can't answer for you, you kind of have to answer for yourself, is that it doesn't, inherently, like businesses tend to never run as smoothly. So you're going to have like factors that stress you, and when people are stressed, emotions are going to come out. If you guys are partners, maybe you can be a little bit more professional, and you can't hold, with two professionals, with two partners that are not like married, you can have these kind of big disagreements, and you can walk away, and they can go to their house, and you can go to your house. With your spouse, you're going to go to the same house. You're going to sleep on the same bed. You're going to eat at the same dinner table. Could you, you got to ask yourself, could you separate that? Could you separate that? And could you be okay with, both people can't be leaders either. One needs to drive the ship. I mean, I don't know if you guys believe that, but like one needs to take the captain of the ship, right? Right? You can't like sit there and deliberate and have equal input. It doesn't really work that way. So if you feel that you're going to go in partnership with your husband, then one needs to follow sometimes, right? And you got to be okay if that's going to be you, if that's going to be him. As far as starting your own side hustle, I guess this question's a little complicated because it's like two really separate questions. I mean, like, is your side hustle in relation to the service that you're going to provide to your husband, or is it something completely different? So maybe the first thing that you need to ask yourself is, one, if you want to establish a side hustle, is that something you really want to do, right? I mean, or are you just trying to find opportunity? You don't really care what it is. Because if your side hustle is something that you really want to do, it's something that you've been thinking about, it's something that you want to build for yourself, then I would go do a side hustle, right? Because that's something for you, right? But if you just kind of want to help out your husband, that's a whole different situation. You see what I'm saying? It's like what you're asking, what factors would you take in consideration between starting your own side hustle or working with your spouse? Those are like really two different things. Like, starting your own side hustle is, again, I'm going to repeat it, starting your own side hustle is something that you're doing for you, right? It's something that you want to create on your own. Helping your spouse with their business is now you're kind of working for your husband, right? And again, there is a lot of stress involved with that. So it really depends on how, that's something that you need to evaluate for yourself. So, I mean, I know that's kind of hopefully I answer that question and some kind of gives you some kind of context, because they're not, this question isn't it's not really a versus question. It's like, hey, this is one subject and this is another subject. Okay, and we're coming to the last question. How long have I been doing this for? 48 minutes. Last question is from Ashley. Business description and background of question. I launched a coaching business this year to help start up, organize, strategize, and digitally market their businesses. I've been helping client one-on-one walk through their planning phases, set goals, and put together a digital marketing strategy. So far, my candidates love the mindset work and the business strategies. I'm like a little version of AO in my own way. I'm looking for ways to scale this so I'm switching to a membership subscription model, okay? However, as I put together my service hierarchy, I would still like to offer a premium one-on-one coaching for those who want it. I'm thinking I can train other coaches to walk business owners through these stages, but would these coaches be employees or independent contractors? Okay. Let's see the question here. When hiring other coaches to scale the coaching business, should they be partners, independent contractors, or employees? Based on what you're telling me, let's rule out partners. Partners is someone that has equity or ownership stake in your company. I don't think that's what you want. I don't think that's what you're asking either. So I would rule out the partners. Independent contractors, employees. So those are two different things. And each state has their own laws with that, right? I'm in California, so we were really not even able to use independent contractors, So, when I bring someone aboard, I usually rule out the independent contractor thing. So, again, there's a lot of things that depends. It depends on what state you're at and how, what the laws are for, hiring independent contractors versus employees, right? But let's say like you don't live in California like me, and there's extensive employment laws with independent and employees, and you live in a state that's a little bit more forgiving with that. Let's just say all things are equal. There are inherent things with both employment relationships, right? Employees, you're going to have to put them on your payroll, so you're going to have the W-2. With the W-2, you're going to have to provide them workers' compensation, different kinds of insurances, and generally it's not just a commission-only process. There's wages involved with that. If you yourself as a business owner has a SEP or a self-employed like 401k, you need to be careful if you hire employees because you have to provide them the same 401k and retirement plans. if you have a group medical plan, you have to, if you have employees, you have to put them on their medical plan, right? You have to pay, as an employer, as an employee, you have to pay unemployment insurance based off of the employee. So having employees is definitely a lot more complicated than having independent contractors. So, to answer your questions, the difference is employees you have more control over, you can give more direction to, and independent contractors you can't, right? I think probably in your situation as where you're going right now, I would use, just for directness sake here, I would use an independent contractor and I would do an independent contract relationship with them. But again, I would check, just depends on what state you live in and what your laws are with that. So based on what you're asking me, I would say start off with independent contractors if you can. Okay. I think that's it. It's a lot of great questions, you guys. A lot of great questions. Again, I haven't been here for a little bit of time, and it's nice to be back and answer your questions. I guess if there's any other questions that you have, I don't know, shoot me a direct message. Feel free to add me on Facebook or Instagram or what have you, and ask away. Cool. Guys, hope you have a fantastic evening. It's only 2:52 here in Orange County, Southern California, so I still got a long work day. But have a fantastic evening. Have a productive week. Let's go kick some ass, and we'll hopefully see you soon. Bye.